welcome Dr. Debarag Banerjee, Chief AI and Data Officer, L&T Finance, for a presentation to India's credit on artificial intelligence in lending. A big round of applause, please.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the little, tech snafu, but okay. So we are on. I lead the data and AI function at L&T Credit, which is one of India's large, top-tier NBFCs. So before we talk about, so I'm going to walk you through what we are doing in terms of our AI underwriting, where our flagship underwriting engine called Cyclops is in production now for more than a year. How we are adapting AI to deal with images that handle very specific problems in rural and urban India, and how we are now augmenting Cyclops with Nostradamus, which is our portfolio optimization tool, and what is our way into agentic AI, how we are using it. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about the AI industry and what we should or should not do about AI regulations. So before we jump into AI, there is a kind of a popular notion that AI started with ChatGPT. Well, the actual story goes back to well into the 50s, early 60s, but it remained sort of this esoteric thing that a few researchers work with. Like, for example, my first paper in neural networks was way back in '93. At that time, computers probably had less computing power than my watch. Now, however, the machine learning part of AI, which neural networks and transformers are a part of, it first saw massive impact to the tune of billion plus users when phones started going digital instead of analog. And then when neural networks went from an esoteric reality to esoteric, thing to a reality is when we figured that it can handle unstructured data like handwriting and other things. And finally, the transformer paper by Vaswani really brought it to a point where we realized that we can generate using AI quite as well as we can do predictions, which is the form of AI that today everybody knows. Now, coming back to our business in India, which is a business of lending money, why does it all matter? So this is a scene you're probably all familiar with, that the dirty secret of Indian e-commerce is that it rides on these motorbikes that hardly cost about a lakh plus. But when a gig worker is using it as their means of income, they're hardly earning 50,000-ish a month, and that too not very regularly. Doesn't have enough money to pay for it upfront, so they have to get a loan, and with an industry standard 15% interest rate, that would be a fair chunk of their income. So traditional banks find it very hard to figure out how is it that they can separate the ones who would be responsible enough among the young population in India who can repay these loans and who cannot, leading to quite a bit of a gap in terms of lending to the near bottom of the pyramid. Now, we approach this problem by looking at not just the traditional credit history data, but also with the customer's permission, we look at their bank statements, the kind of payments history that they have had, which reveals something about where they're spending their money, about the type of location they live in, and what that tells about the affluence and the existing fraud rates and stuff like that at that location. And with that, we create a model based on the past credit performance of our portfolio, and predict the probability that a particular customer is going to default or not default on their loan. And based on that, we stack rank them, or rather segmentize them from the best segment 1 to the worst segment 5. We give a preferential pricing, better LTVs to segment 1, and for the segment 5, we try to be risk contained and give an appropriately lower loan to value. That is the crux of Cyclops, which we launched way back in July of this year, July of 24. And then over a series of ever-increasing A/B tests, we got convinced in early Jan that, yes, we have successfully proved that this actually outperforms the old way of doing business. And since then, we have upgraded this real-time, model-driven way of doing underwriting twice, and now Cyclops is in its third incarnation. Now, this still will finally tell us that, yes, this is the amount of credit losses that we have squelched as a result of the growth we have produced once this book first starts to close around Jan 27th, right? So how do we know that we have actually improved things? So what we do is we looked at early indicators of default, like, for example, gross non-starters are the people who, on their first EMI itself, their bank withdrawal bounces. That rate has come down by about 1/3 from the beginning of the launch of Cyclops to now. And the other way to look at it is like-to-like vintage comparison. So if you look at the older portfolio and the control portfolio that was running at in parallel with Cyclops, and how the default rates progressed as the portfolio matured itself, the months on book (MOB) that somebody has been on the book, we see that all the other curves grew at a much faster rate, where we see more default coming as time progresses, compared to the green, which is the latest version of Cyclops, where the default rates are progressing at only 1/3 the rate. So early days, but still, if that trend continues, you can imagine the amount of credit loss savings that this will yield to a portfolio of our size. The other interesting aspect of this is when we took a look at what does this mean to the customer, we actually collaborated with a local university, Shivnadar, where some of their students talked to some of our borrowers, and they revealed something interesting. That because with all of this alternative data, we are able to make these decisions at a lightning speed of less than 4 seconds. The model is able to give a loan to those deserving customers who were otherwise not getting it. So they feel we trust them more than the other lenders, other equivalent lenders do. So Steve Jobs had this saying that a sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Now, trust is very human. Trust is magic. And that is what our customers felt, among many other things. Now, it's not just confined to two-wheeler lending. even in the rural areas where we are one of the biggest tractor lenders in the world, and by the way, India, by unit, is the largest tractor market in the world. We have been able to come up with a similar machine learning driven underwriting model, but the type of data that we need to use there is very different. For example, we have geointelligence models whose output that we are using that utilizes things like which areas have what kind of level of development and access to markets and so on and so forth. There are acro models that look at, again, both from weather system as well as satellite-derived data, what is the kind of rainfalls and soil types and growth, etc., the crop growth that has happened. And then this being a very very face-to-face human-to-human driven lending model, there's also additional layers of intelligence that the field guys can bring back to us. This, along with the traditional bureau model, gives us our Cyclops model. And that's how we adopted Cyclops for the rural part of India. Now, not all data comes in the form of numbers in a spreadsheet. Sometimes data takes the form of of an image. So take an example, again, in the tractor world, where let us say you want to give a top-up loan on a tractor, or a tractor needs to go into auction. You need to come up with a valuation for it. Now, there's a big difference between a tractor in a good condition, great tires, and so on and so forth, versus one that is not. And how would you know that difference? So when the field agents go to evaluate the tractor, they take pictures, and then we have LLM-driven models that multimodally evaluate this and come up with a score. The score actually swings the price with an importance order of more than 12%, and that makes sure a much more accurate valuation than it would otherwise. Another example of how we are adapting image-based data processing to the Indian context is in urban India. Indian cities are very heterogeneous. Even in the same pin code, you may have fantastically built, very affluent neighborhoods with large, tall buildings right next to areas that are economically stressed, have small hutments next to each other, huddled together, call them slums or otherwise. And how do we separate this one neighborhood from another when they are just across the street from each other, sometimes not even that? So we came up with an algorithm that originates from the Google Earth data, which Google pre-processed into open buildings data. And then on top of that, we created a set of algorithms where within a 100-meter by 100-meter grid, we can rate an area about whether they are a well-developed neighborhood or they have these dense population clusters. And it turns out that they also correlate very highly with the type of delinquency rates that we see in our two-wheeler and our personal loan portfolio. Now, one common theme I think that comes across from all this is ultimately we are taking data of all kinds, of many kinds, right? And then we are putting a prediction engine on top of that utilizes this data to come up with a granular prediction of the default probability and so on and so forth of each user. And then based on that, we make decisioning, all of that in real time, on what kind of loan to give a particular applicant. So that's the basic philosophy of Cyclops. The same thing we're using for two-wheelers with a certain kind of data, with farm with a very different type of data, some overlapping, some not. Also brought the same concept to our small and medium business loans, where we get a similar outcome, and then our personal loans where Cyclops recently launched. Now, in this whole thing about which data to use for which kind of decisioning, there is a question. What is the return that I ultimately get from using this data versus that data? Now, instead of leaving that question again to a kind of qualitative assessment, we came up with a way of actually computing what we call RODI, return on data investment. Simply put, the amount of credit losses that I'm saving and the amount of extra income opportunities that I'm generating by taking the no versus yes decisions, that is my return, right? And the cost of the data, the processing of it, and so on and so forth is my investment. So that ratio is what it is. And then we have came up with methodologies on how those can be quantitatively analyzed. Now, I'm actually fairly new to finance. I'm more like an AI guy, right? But one thing I learned very quickly is that in the world of lending, you know a customer only to a certain extent before you actually give him the loan. Right after you give him the loan, his true color emerges. Now, that color, whether it is green, a customer going from stage to stage of life where he will eventually become a prime customer even though he is too young and too early in his journey to appear so, or is he going into economic stress that we did not realize he would run into at the time of onboarding, which may take him to default. How do we monitor that, and how do we act on that? So that was the motivation for our portfolio monitoring tool called Nostradamus, which is powered again by data and AI. Let's take a listen on how that works. Now, we have Cyclops and we have Nostradamus. How do they work together? So, quite simply, Cyclops is the pre-onboarding decisioning tool based on data. That hopefully leads to disbursement of a loan. Many of those together makes for a portfolio. Now, that portfolio then, we utilize these new sources of data on a continuous basis, whether that is financial data, whether that's macroeconomic data, whether those are app-based digital data in order to model the users, every user, the millions and millions that we have on board, and then model what kind of early warning signals we may be getting from them, which we which can be used either by our credit and business teams in order to drill down to any particular areas, in particular cohorts, and take decisions, or increasingly, we are using a chat GPT-like system that we created ourselves called Orion, that with which they can actually get the answers even without having to dig through tons and tons of data themselves and get actionable decisions. So these decisions can either power relevant collection actions, like which customers to allocate to which kind of collection channels, or complete the loop by taking actions on the Cyclops models themselves and keep them afresh and keep them updated by continuously upgrading them. So that's how Cyclops and Nostradamus comes together for the type of portfolios that are mature, are ready enough so that decisions can essentially be automated. But that is not so for all kinds of loans. Like, for example, every small business has its own unique characteristic. Every home loan has a ton of paperwork that somebody has to go through. And sometimes these applications take days and days and days before the applicant even knows whether they got a loan or not, which affects the quality of lending, which affects the quality of everything else. Now, can we actually accelerate that? And can we enable the humans who make these decisions to make quicker decisions with AI? Turns out we can, and that was the motivation behind Helios, what we call our underwriting copilot. So in an underwriting copilot, what we do is we take a number of sources of data, whether it's the bureau report, whether it is which looks like this, right? Pages and pages and pages and pages. Believe it or not, today, underwriters have to go through all this. And now, with AI, we quickly generate not only the basis of the numbers they have to plug in, but also questions that they need to go back and ask the applicant. Similar things for bank records. Instead of pages and pages looking at it, we get insights based on that. We can get a early warning signal that, okay, this can be of this thing to focus on, or that. And then that gives the copilot user a very easy way to understand where they have duplication, where they have anomalies, and how they can make faster decision to decide whether to go forward with that particular loan or not. Now, that is about Helios. Now, on this, it would be really great if you can make the audio work. Can you? Yes, no? Great. So the next thing I wanted to show you, unfortunately, the audio is not working. It's a little hard. Okay. Okay. So this is the voice of an AI agent. This is not human. When somebody does not pay their EMI on time, we have to the audio did play. Can you try it again?
नमस्कार, मी साई L&T फायनान्स कडून कॉल करत आहे. मी राजकुमार राठोड बोलत आहे का? समझ गया, ध्यान रहे. देरी से बाउंस चार्ज लग सकते हैं.
माफ
और
करा,
आपका क्रेडिट
पण मी आपल्याला मदत
प्रभावित
करू
हो
शकत
सकता है.
नाही. मी
क्या
L&T
आप
फायनान्सच्या
आरबीआई
वतीने
करने
कॉल
की
करत
कोशिश
आहे
कर सकते हैं?
आणि आपल्याला आपल्या थकीत EMI बद्दल $7,238 आठवण करून देण्यासाठी
ठीक है,
संपर्क साधला
मैं
आहे.
समझता हूं.
आपण
लेकिन
आज
क्या
पेमेंट करू
आप बता
शकता का?
सकते हैं कि आप कल किस समय पेमेंट कर पाएंगे?
ठीक आहे, धन्यवाद. तर आपण आजच पेमेंट करणार आहात, हो ना?
And it's available also in languages like Marathi and 11 other Indian languages. This today can replace at least half of the type of collection calling that otherwise humans have to do. It's not only expensive to use humans for this, but it's a really tedious job. So this is an example where AI can really take over entire conversations, right, and entire processes over, and yet with a very humane impact. Now, another way in which we are taking AI to face our customers is Kai, customer AI. And now this is a chatbot, but it's unlike most chatbots you might have interacted with on a website. Why? Because not only does it authenticate you and know you and bring your data together, but if you're interacted with most chatbots, they seem to follow a formula, and then if it doesn't quite, what the customer wants does not quite, fit there, it gets stuck there. And the best you can hope for is that some human will pick up. In this particular case, because it is powered underneath by multiple LLM calls meshing together into the right agentic workflow, it gives both accurate answers free of hallucination, and also it understands you the same way if you walked into a mortgage advisor's office and asked him general questions about your mortgage and specific questions about your own one. And again, this is available in all 11 languages today that we are supporting, and we plan to continue increasing this until all our target customers are reached in their own mother tongue. Now, that's what we are doing at L&T Finance. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about how AI, what is happening in the world of AI in general. So, pace of AI is clearly accelerating. We see a new model almost every other day beating its benchmark. And for task after task, we are seeing AI crossing the Turing bound where it is doing better than humans. We are seeing an increase in the data with which these models can be trained, and we are seeing more and more efficient algorithms that can take better decisions and smarter generations. But at the same time, something else is happening. The call for regulating AI is clearly accelerating as well. There are already actions taken by EU, for example, and several other governments are considering AI regulation. Now, why is it that such a nascent, such a accelerating technology is producing such a regulatory reaction? Some of these are related to certain myths. So first is that AI is very expensive, and whoever spends the most on GPUs is going to win. And yes, there was a time when that was the case. From going from zero to the first to the GPT 3.5 model, it took about $6 billion for OpenAI to reach there. But few years later, we see that a group of pretty smart computer scientists at DeepSeek cracked this code and cracked this, these algorithms and made them efficient enough so that they made R1, their first model, with less than $6 million. That's a 1,000x drop in building a capable enough LLM. Another myth we keep hearing about is that AI will cost jobs. Even Jeff Hinton famously said that there's no need to study radiology anymore because AI will take all of the radiologists' jobs within 5 years. Said that in 2016. That was 10 years ago. I don't think any radiologists have lost their job yet. Another is that if we let AI take decisions, then what if it takes the wrong decisions? Or what if that leads to some really bad outcomes at scale? And that was a very relevant fear until about 12, 13 years ago, because for most tasks, humans were outperforming AI. But task after task after task, we are seeing AI do better and more accurately compared to humans. Something to realize here is that the alternative to AI is not some, super efficient, super accurate outcome, but an outcome by a human, that red bar, which will not move with technology. Then, last year, came out this MIT paper that, AI is all great, but 95% of AI initiatives and enterprises actually don't see the light of the day. Well, at a very kind of factual level, that was true last year. But if you then dig further into the data, why is it that enterprises like us are able to get business value after value from AI initiative after initiative? It's because if you try to take a workflow that was originally meant for humans and then try to force fit AI and say, okay, I'm just going to take this human out and put an AI engine in and everything else will work, it will not. And there are, great quotes from Elon Musk on this. Well, the way to make it work so that it gives you the right outcomes is by reimagining the workflow first, by thinking that, okay, these are the things I'm going to automate with AI. And then you need to bring the whole village, you need to bring the whole enterprise, all the other functions, not just the data science function, to adapt and change to that workflow, and then you see the kind of successes that we have seen. Now, just to bring it to something historical but real and very relevant to India. Not too long ago, just a few decades ago, Kolkata was a great center of intellectual productivity, right? So many Nobel laureates, so many good science graduates, and so on and so forth. Compared to that, Bangalore at the time was a small industrial city. However, sometime few decades ago, the government in Kolkata got very leery about adopting computers in banks and other places, putting the brake on the oncoming IT revolution, which Bangalore adopted. And look at the outcome today. Bangalore is clearly, outshining as a Silicon Valley of India, and Kolkata has fallen behind. The Now, the reason I'm talking about this cautionary tale is because when it comes to regulating AI, we need to make sure that in a global scale, the type of regulations that we bring about puts us into a position where we innovate and where we grow. Now, here I want to end this with a hopeful, with an optimistic note. So very recently, there was a advisory committee of RBI called the Free AI that came up with an outline of how AI may be regulated in the financial context. And I'm very happy to see that they actually came up with recommendations that strongly favors innovation while keeping the right responsibility, the right level of risk-calibrated regulations. That is definitely hopeful. That is definitely optimistic. And I hope that as India progresses on its AI journey, we continue to produce a world, produce a country that favors innovation and rides on top of it. Thank you.